Some of you who know me personally and know me for many years know that when I was 21, my father died. My father died, he was only 47. Now, when you're 21, you think 47 is an old man. But all of us here, beyond 47, know how young 47 really is. I'm the oldest of 7 children, and at that time, my father was a mohel. He was a Long Island Jewish hospital. Long Island Jewish had started just around that time. My father was the first mohel there with others, and he taught me how to do Brit Milah. But believe me, when you're a 21-year-old kid, not many people want to take you as a mohel. I would walk into a house, and a grandmother would take a look at me and say, "Oh, you look so young." I would say, "Well, the baby's also young." Right? So you try to break the ice, right? So I want to tell you something that it took me more than 20 years to say in public. Because I was so humiliated about this thing that I'm going to tell you right now. I couldn't even talk about it, but now I guess I could laugh at it. Do you know that a guy actually sent me home once? I came in with my bris bag. I was so young. He took one look at me. He said, "You are not going to touch my son." Could you believe the humiliation? I had to go home and tell my mother. She said, "How'd you get home so fast?" It's awful. Awful. So besides, that it was hard, to get people to trust me, at that age. But when this guy sent me home, that was the worst. But okay, Baruch Hashem, I'm still here to talk about it. But anyway, let me just tell you what happened. One day I come to the synagogue, I'm davening in my shul in Kew Gardens. I'm not the rabbi there, I daven like anybody else. And a man, Mr. Israel, comes over to me. And he says, "Paysach, I know it's not easy for you, I have something for you." And he gives me an envelope. It's 1967, my father died in 1966. And he gives me an envelope with $1,500. Now, $1,500 is a lot of money today. In 67, it certainly was a lot of money. I was so taken aback. I said, "Mr. Israel, thank you, but, we're not poor. We don't need tzedakah." He said, "No, this is not tzedakah. This is a loan." I said, "When do I have to pay it back?" He said, "I will never ask you for it. Never. Whenever you want, you pay me back." I said, "Thank you very much. I'm going to go home now from shul, and I'm going to talk to my mother, and if she wants to take it, I will, but if not, I'm not going to take it." I go home, I say, "Ma, Mr. Israel just gave us $1,500. She said, "Wait a second, we're not poor. We don't need tzedakah." Ma, I said the same thing to him, but he said it's a loan. So when do we pay back? Whenever we want. He'll never ask. Okay. We really did need the money, so I took it. Fine. 2 years later, I was 23 already, and more people were taking me. I put together the money, and I went to his office on Queens Boulevard. And I come to his office, I said, "Mr. Israel, I want to thank you very much for what you did. We really did need the money then. So here's the $1,500 back." He says, "I'm not taking it." I said, "What are you talking about? You're not taking it? You said it was a loan. We weren't going to take tzedakah." He says, "Sit down, I want to tell you a story." He says, "Do you remember a couple years ago when I went bankrupt?" He's talking about himself. Oh my gosh, did I remember. The whole synagogue was shocked because he was such a wealthy man and all of a sudden he went bankrupt. He said, "A man in our neighborhood, Mr. Lowenstein, he came over to me and he gave me money." And I said to him, "I'm not poor, I don't need tzedakah." He said, "No, it's not tzedakah, it's a loan." So I said to him what you said to me. "When do I pay back?" He said, "I'll never ask you, whenever you want." A few years later, I came back to pay Mr. Lowenstein, and he said, "I'm not taking the money." So I said, "What do you mean you're not taking the money? You said it's a loan." He said, "Of course it's a loan. And you got to pay, but not me. One day you're going to find a family that needs the money, and you give it to them. That's how you pay me back. And when they come to pay you, you're going to tell them the same thing. You're not taking the money, but they should pass it on to somebody else." And that's exactly what my mother and I did. A few months later, we knew a family that needed the money. We gave it to them. And when they came to pay us back, we told them, pass it on to somebody else. That's unity. That's chesed. That's a community that's together. That's what chesed is all about. And sometimes you have to be creative, like Mr. Israel was, or Mr. Lowenstein really, because that was his original idea. But when you have people that are doing that, then you know you have a Lev Toiv. Then you know that you're climbing the ladder towards Shavuot, that Ki'ish Echad, B'Lev Echad, that's what they're all about.